All right, we'll go ahead and start up here. We're going to take a look at using accounts receivable in Retail Pro and how that can link with using account link to QuickBooks accounting. So, hang on one moment here. All right, so we're going to take a look at doing accounts receivable and with account link and using QuickBooks accounting. We'll take a look at how to do an AR charge in RPRO. We'll look at setting up system preferences and the charge tender. We'll set up making a payment on account. In account link, we'll take a look at how you would set up account link. We'll look at how to choose a customer from Retail Pro. We will take a look at how to read a receipt and how to post that receipt and how to import that into QuickBooks and how to apply a PO payment to your invoices. So getting started, I'm going to open up Retail Pro. I'm going to start with Retail Pro 8. In Retail Pro 8, you want to make sure that you have it all set up to handle your Retail Pro charge. So we will go to Options. We will choose System Preferences. From there, we will choose Point of Sale. We will take a look at Tender Requirements. We will take a look at Charge. We can see for Charge, we have it set up to use charge for both tendering and exchanging. And we can see here that I've required a first and last name as well as an address on charges. For receipts and tendering, we have charge set up as an available tender. For customers, we have allow charges against charge limit of 0 and limit charge tenders to customers who are marked as AR, accounts receivable. We have also made sure that we had a fee set up called POA, payment on account, for making payments on your charges whenever you have one occur in Retail Pro. And we save those changes, and our Retail Pro is now all set up to accept accounts receivable charges. We have similar settings in QuickBooks or Retail Pro version 9 under Options and System Preferences. We would choose Local Preferences under Customers. We can see we have our customers set up. We have under Documents, there's nothing special we need to set here. Under Point of Sale, under Tenders, we have our charge tender. We can see it is set up for making sales and doing returns. And we have it set up to require the customer's name. Under Receipts, let's see, no. I always forget where we hide that one. Under Fees and Shipment, we've made sure that we set up POA as a payment on account fee. So we have the payment on account set up in both Retail Pro version 8 and version 9. They basically work exactly the same way, whether you're doing 8 or 9. It truly doesn't matter because they're going to behave essentially the same way. We will do our transactions here in version 9. Like I said, it works the same as it does in 8. We're going to go up here and we're going to choose sales. We'll choose receipts. If you are doing a receipt in Retail Pro, we're going to create a new one. And if you're doing a charge receipt, you have to add a customer to that receipt. So I'm going to add a customer here. So it locates my customer. I want to add an item to the receipt. So I'm going to choose an item. And I am going to add one of those. So I've got these shoes added to the receipt. When I go to choose tender, I need to be sure to choose charge if I'm going to pay with an accounts receivable. When I choose charge, it asks me for my terms. I'm going to use the default terms. I'll say OK. I've now got the charge as my payment type, and I can print and update that receipt. I don't really need to print it, so I'm simply going to do an update, and that will update my receipt. If I am making a payment on account, I essentially do the same thing. I choose that I want to make a payment on account, and I do that by adding a customer to the receipt. And then, instead of adding an item, and that is the one thing you definitely do not want to do when you are doing a charge, is you do not want to make a charge and a payment on the same receipt. If the customer is buying something that they want to charge, and they also want to make a payment, you want to make sure that you do two separate receipts, one for the charge and one for the payment. So we will come down here to our fee. We will add in the amount that the customer is paying. When I hit enter, it asks me for the fee type. It's a POA. And I will tender that. And I will tender that with cash. And the customer is going to hand me $140. And we will save that. And we have our receipt. Again, I'm simply going to update it. So, any questions on doing an AR charge or doing a payment on account? Not yet? All right. So, once we have completed our day sales and we've done our end of day routine, then we are ready to read that information over with AccountLink and drop it into our accounting software. Typically, most people do that the following morning as opposed to that evening, but it can be done either way. In fact, it can be done a week later if you wanted to, because AccountLink will let you read any particular day you want. It doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be yesterday. You just want to read receipts one day at a time. So if we go down here and open up AccountLink, we can see that AccountLink looks a lot like Retail Pro. We have the same buttons on the top. We have the same options on the side. They're just slightly different options. So The first thing we do when we are setting up Account Link is we have to map it so that it can post correctly into your accounting software. We do that by going to Options, and we go to Preferences. That will bring up our Account Link settings, and here we get to set up our settings for Account Link. We start out by selecting what accounting software we're using, and we're using QuickBooks here. So we've got QuickBooks set up for our general ledger. We have it set up for our accounts receivable, and we also have it set up for accounts payable. Commission and time cards do not set up at all in QuickBooks Accounting. For our GL accounts, we tell it what accounts we're using, and we're set up to use flexible account structure, which is usually the way we set up Account Link with our accounts with QuickBooks. Flexible accounts means that it uses the account name, not an account number, and so it will pick it up according to the account name. Our GL options are what different tender types are we going to accept. And we have charge accepted. And then we've got options to use a purchase clearing if we would like with vouchers. We can also split sales into original sales and discount sales. For accounts receivable, we have charge is going to be our accounts receivable tender, and POA will be our accounts receivable fee or payment on account. We have the customer's name. We have bring over the address from the customer. For accounts payable, we have similar settings. For system options, typically always set it up to keep preview batches for 15 days and posted batches for 90 days. Down here under QuickBooks, you'll notice there's several other options in here because Account Link can also send data to BusinessWorks or to Mass 90 or to Sage 100, but we're doing QuickBooks. And so with QuickBooks, we set up a folder on your hard drive, typically your shared server hard drive, for where we want our data to go to. When you process a batch with Account Link for QuickBooks, it creates what's called an IIF file. That's an Intuit interchange file, and it adds that data as an interchange file, and then this tells it where it's going to store that file. You then go into accounting and tell it to grab that file and import it into your QuickBooks accounting, which we'll see here in a couple of minutes. So under QuickBooks, we have for accounts payable, setting up accounts payable, we've got go to accounts payable and go to AP clearing. Also to automatically update any vendors who are new or who are marked as export. Under accounts receivable, we have accounts receivable as our main AR account and AR clearing. The reason for the AR and AP clearing accounts is Account Link cannot post directly into a QuickBooks accounts receivable or accounts payable account, so it posts into the clearing account. It does not require any interaction from you. The data goes into the AR clearing account or the AP clearing account. It comes straight out and then goes into accounts receivable and the appropriate customer, or accounts payable and the appropriate vendor. All you have to do is check and make sure that the AR or AP clearing account always have a value of 0. It's also set up to automatically update customers, which means if you create a new customer that you want to be an accounts receivable customer and you mark them as export, the Account Link will automatically send them over to your QuickBooks accounting to record that customer. If you make changes to a customer in Retail Pro, then you also want to mark that customer as export so that QuickBooks will pick that up and Account Link will send it over to it. All right. The last thing to set up is the store account manager. Store account manager lets you map where you are going to send information to. You can send information so that your credit cards all combine and come over as one number, or you can send over each credit card as a separate number. You can also combine debit cards with those credit cards or keep it as a separate number. For cash and checks, you can either have them be separate or you can combine them into one number as well. So I have all my cash, checks, and undeposited and credit cards all going to undeposited funds. From there, I can deposit them into the bank whenever I need to in my QuickBooks accounting. I also am able to scroll down here and see all the other options I have for stuff. You can see for charge, I have it going to AR clearing. I've got my gift certificates, my store credits. I've got my sales tax. I have that POA, and I have that going to AR clearing as well. If we scroll on down, we will find our cost of goods account. We've got those going to cost of goods. And if we scroll a little more, we get to our accounts payable. And we can see that our accounts payable is going to AP clearing, as is my purchase clearing. They can go to separate accounts if you desire. You do not need to clear the purchase clearing. It could go directly to a purchase clearing account. All right. So once we have our account link all set up and mapped to where we want it to go to in QuickBooks, we can save those changes, and we're all set for our first batch. To read a batch, we go to batches. Once we're in batches, then we choose the kind of batch we want to read. We can do receipts, which are our daily sales. We can do vouchers, which are our accounts payable and the stuff we receive from our vendors. We can do slips, which is stuff we send between stores. And we can do memos, which are adjustments you have to your inventory that don't involve a slip, voucher, or receipt. So accounts receivable is going to fall under receipts. So we go to receipts. We go over here to read. We tell it we want to read a batch. When you go to read a batch, we want to tell it we want to read this batch as marked. We tell it what day we want to read for. And I'm going to read yesterday. When you're entering the dates, you want to enter the same date into all three areas. The batch description will be the name of the IIF file. The start date is the date you want to start reading on. The end date is the date you want to stop reading on. And they should all be the same date. The biggest error that occurs is when someone doesn't change the end date, because the end date always defaults to today. You also probably want to create a separate batch for each store. If you have more than one store, that will give you the results of each store separately. So you can evaluate those results and import each of them separately. We do an OK batch for what happened in our sales. We can see here, here's our total sales for yesterday. We had a payment on account. We also had a charge. We can see our cost of goods. We can see our cash transaction. We also had a credit card transaction. We can see our sales tax. And we can see our inventory, which you'll notice is the same as the cost of goods, just one is being subtracted and the other is being added. So we're subtracting from inventory and adding to cost of goods. When we are verifying the accuracy of this batch, you want to check these two numbers down here. You don't necessarily care what they are, just so both the debit and the credit are the same number. Then, usually you want to check the merchandise sales number, and you would check that against a Z out that you have printed from that day. Or you could go into your Retail Pro software, take a look at former Z outs, and you could check your Z out from that day. And we can see here that our net sales was $240, which is the same value we have over here in AccountLink for our merchandise sales. Tells us this is a good batch. If you wanted to, you could check the other numbers, but you don't need to. If these two numbers are good and that number's good, then your batch is good, you can post it. If the merchandise sales number doesn't match up with your Z out, the next thing you would look for is something that says transaction discount. A transaction discount would be if someone gave a global discount to one of your sales receipts. Global discounts are reported separately, and it would probably be in the batch debit column. And you would need to subtract that number from the merchandise sales in order to get a number that matches the number that shows up in the X out Z out. But we didn't have any of those, so everything is good. So I can post this batch. I tell it what day I'm posting for, and I save. My batch is posted. That means it's now ready for me to import into my accounting. So we run over here to accounting. I go up here to file. I go down to utilities. I go to import, and I go to IIF files. That's going to open up or allow me to open up that folder where I told it to put things, QB data. Here, I can see a batch that I read previously. I'm going to put that away in my imported batches folder so I don't read it in a second time. I will select my receipt marked with yesterday, which is the date that I created those transactions. I can then go ahead and import that file by saying open. It will import that data. Because I have a zero charge balance set up in my QuickBooks, it lets me know that I've exceeded my transaction. Do I still want to post this? Yes, I do, because the sales already happened. I say OK, and I've now imported that information into my QuickBooks accounting. I open up chart of accounts. I check AR clearing, and my AR clearing doesn't say zero. That tells me something went wrong. What went wrong? If I rearrange this to look at it by order entered, that tells me I've got something weird here. I've got this transaction up here, which doesn't belong, because when I get to this general journal, I should always have zero. So I know that was one that somehow got added and didn't get cleaned up. I'm going to delete that. That'll bring me back to zero. What happens is you get the total of your vouchers, you get the total of your payment on accounts, then you get the individual transactions, which ends you up back at 0. And now we're at 0. Once I have posted those transactions, I can go to customers. I can look up my customer, and I can see that here on my account, I made a charge, and I charged that $130. Here on David's account, he made a payment on his account for $130, but he doesn't seem to have a charge for $130, but so he's got a $130 credit hanging out waiting for a payment, which is probably what that invoice was that it should have been entered completely and it was only entered partially, so therefore it wasn't balanced to show that he now has a invoice to pay. Also, over here in our deposits, we can see our deposit, the cash deposit and the credit card deposit. We can post that to our checking account. We would post them separately. I would select the cash deposit. I would come over here, move it into my checking account, and I would save a new. And I would then choose the other one. And I would post that one. That allows me to post both the credit cards and the cash. And I could come over here and I could make a note that that was Visa. And I can save and close. And those have now been posted into my checking account. And we can see them in the checking account. All right. If I wanted to check on my accounts receivable for each individual customer, I find the easiest way to do that is to go Reports, go Customers and Receivables, go to Open Invoices, and I can see any invoices I might have open. It breaks it up by customer, and I can see if I have an invoice, I can see if I have a payment. If I have a payment and an invoice to the same customer, then I can double click on that invoice and it will allow me to post any payments I have to it and clear up that particular invoice so it doesn't hang out here and end up reporting itself as being late, even though it's actually already been paid. All right. That is essentially accounts receivable using Retail Pro and using AccountLink and QuickBooks. Any questions on any of those procedures? No? I'm not hearing any questions.
No.
So if you don't have any questions, then that's all I've got for you this afternoon. I'll let you run away and go back to doing whatever other fun stuff you can find. If you think of any questions, feel free to drop us a note or give us a call, and we'll be glad to help you out. So,
thank you, Daryl.
Everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon. Hopefully not because you're broke, though. Take care. Bye-bye.